From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
One stuck bear.
I know, it's horrible. It's horrible for the bear.
See what's left after this bear got into a bit of trouble. A potentially explosive report for the beef industry about cattle and the claim raised without antibiotics. As markets soar despite what analysts say was a slightly bearish report from USDA.
But I think there's a lot to be learned whenever it comes to the Black Sea region. How much is Ukraine going to get planted?
We break down the numbers right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan. Clinton is on vacation. Well, USDA on Friday releasing a new batch of supply and demand numbers, pushing grain markets even higher. Let's start with the current stocks here in the U.S. Corn counted as 1.44 billion bushels. That's unchanged from last month, with forecasters lowering feed and residual use by 25 million bushels, but raising corn used for ethanol by 25 million. The number a bit higher than the trade was predicting. And for soybeans, 260 million bushels in the bin. That's down 25 million from last month, thanks to an increase in exports, a bit closer to also what trade had called for. And wheat at 678 million bushels, up 25 million bushels from March, with exports lowered, but still supplies are 20% lower than last year. But Chris Zoller of The Ohio State says despite having these numbers, there's a lot of uncertainty going into planting this year.
We've been dealing with the high fertilizer prices and thinking, well, they'll drop, they'll slow. Something positive in that respect will happen. There's been issues with availability, and we thought, well, that's going to change. And now we have this Russia-Ukraine war, which is something we look at Russia and Ukraine as being approximately 30% of the wheat exports for the world. So that's a significant amount. Ukraine accounts for about 17% of the corn world exports. And so, what are those things, if those things don't happen, if we can't get those crops marketed from that part of the world, what's that going to do?
We're also keeping an eye on world ending stocks due to the war in Ukraine. USDA cutting the country's wheat exports by 1 million metric tons to 19 million since Black Sea ports in the country remain closed. It also says the majority of Ukraine's exports have already been shipped, but it increased foreign corn ending stocks due to increases in Ukraine, Serbia, and the EU, increasing them by 4.5 million metric tons to 305.
Who knows how much wheat you're going to be able to pull out of that region of the world. I think that, the global wheat situation has been, basically being reduced over the last couple, 3 years. U.S. Wheat situation, the same thing. And so it's going to be very interesting to kind of see where's all the wheat business going to go to. I think people have been kind of waiting around, see, like for instance, what Egypt's going to do. Is China going to latch on to some wheat supplies to throw in its storage? There's a lot of things that could happen here, but long story short, the wheat situation is definitely much more unstable than what we've seen in the past few years.
And in South America, USDA lowering its Brazil soybean crop estimate by 2 million metric tons due to 125 million on Friday. The agency raised the corn estimate to 116 million metric tons. That's up more than 1 million from last month. USDA left both Argentina's corn and soybean crop unchanged.
USDA has been slow to adjust. Last year, they were the same way, actually, and ended up working in their favor. When it was all said and done, USDA was closer than what other folks were, and they did so by basically lagging that production. And so it seems the USDA feels that maybe this bean production, which some people had under 120 million tons, they feel comfortable at 125 for the time being. I don't know that I expect that to change a whole lot moving forward.
We have results online at agweb.com, and I'll take a deeper dive into the numbers with our marketing analysts coming up. Well, it's a report that's bound to rock the beef industry. A study says a substantial portion of beef that is advertised as raised without antibiotics, well, it may in fact contain antibiotics. The study was published in Science magazine and conducted by researchers at George Washington University. They tested urine samples from cattle that were destined for a raised without antibiotics marketplace. They found about 15% of the cattle tested positive for antibiotics. They reportedly tested a total of 699 cattle from 312 lots and 33 different raised without antibiotics certified feed yards. The study was funded by Food in Depth, which was co-founded by Bill Nyman, formerly of Nyman Ranch. Kevin Lowe, the CEO of Food in Depth, says in a statement, quote, "Consumers are paying real money for these claims. They should get what they pay for," end quote. For more on this, you can check out the article on drovers.com. Well, the EPA says it's rejecting 36 petitions from oil refiners requesting exemptions from biofuel blending laws for the 2018 compliance year. However, the agency will provide 31 of those refineries with another avenue to seek relief. Speaking to AgriTalk's Chip Flory last week, Renewable Fuels Association Chief Economist Scott Richmond said the EPA used public and private data to complete a thorough analysis in 2021 that showed there's no need for small refinery exemptions.
They did a really thorough analysis of the impact of the renewable fuel standard on small refineries. They found that small refineries, just like other refineries, are able to pass along through to wholesale prices the cost of the RINs, and that there is no disproportionate economic hardship to refineries from compliance with the renewable fuel standard. They actually used, in addition to public data, they used private data that they've received from the refiners as part of the petitions for SRAs, and they said that there's basically nothing there.
But the Renewable Fuels Association is calling EPA's recent decision a hollow victory for the biofuels industry. RFA President Jeff Cooper saying, quote, "EPA admits that these exemptions never should have been granted in the first place, but now is sweeping them under the rug and letting refiners who got those exemptions off the hook," end quote. Well, another day brings more confirmed cases of a deadly bird flu in commercial operations. USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service has added more commercial operations as being confirmed with highly pathogenic avian influenza. They include new cases that were confirmed in North Carolina, Missouri, Minnesota, and South Dakota. It's estimated that 4% of U.S. layer flock has died in 2 months since the first confirmation of the virus. Egg-laying hens, they account for 2 of every 3 birds that have died. However, Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack says he does not expect significant egg shortages because of it, thanks to improved biosecurity measures since the 2014 and 2015 outbreak. Well, a Chinese national who pleaded guilty earlier this year to stealing a trade secret from Monsanto will spend time behind bars. Xiang Haitao, formerly of Chesterfield, Missouri, was sentenced to more than 2 years in prison. The Department of Justice says Xiang pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit economic espionage back in January. They said he copied a trade secret from the company's online farming platform, Nutrient Optimizer, and attempted to fly to China with it. Investigators later determined that one of his electronic devices contained copies of the Nutrient Optimizer. Xiang was also ordered to pay more than $150,000. Well, high winds and dry conditions are whipping up wildfires across the West. Take a look at this video that was taken in Plains, Kansas. This fire started completely on accident, the rancher says, when a truck backfired, setting off those fires. That gives you an idea of just how dry and windy it has been there. Now, the family says they have had to humanely euthanize animals that were caught in the fire. And in Oklahoma, crews worked over the weekend to battle multiple wildfires, including some in the Panhandle. In one fire, crews from 40 different fire departments were attempting to put out the flames. At last report, it covered about 2,000 acres. Another covering more than 1,300 acres. But there is some good news for portions of Oklahoma on the horizon, possibly in the form of potential rain. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us. Matt, some of those storms I'm hearing could get severe.
Yeah, Tyne, that's right. More severe weather could be possible over the next couple of days in parts of the country. Right there in the middle, that's part of our weather watch. Weather headlines, cooler temperatures and active weather in the west, and that is going to be rain and even some higher elevation snow, and then also that chance for severe weather Monday through Wednesday, right through the middle part of the country, a little bit farther west than what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. And we are also going to be looking at more rain in the east, in part due to those storms, but also a couple of systems going to be moving their way through as we head, especially towards the second half of the week. So here's a look at our map on Monday. Storm system coming up into the Midwest and Great Lakes, bringing with it some moisture. Warm temperatures out ahead of that when sunny still along the East Coast. Meanwhile, a couple more systems bringing some rain and mountain snow back in the west. and that's going to be slowly starting to move eastward. As it does, temperatures will cool off. But here's a look at that severe weather threat as we head through the week. We're going to be looking at Monday through Wednesday, the potential for a tornado threat here, and we're talking about the potential for tornadoes, strong gusty winds, and even some hail in that area there highlighted in red, and that's where we're going to be talking about over the next few days, seeing the chance for severe weather. And check out the high winds in Nebraska. Jacqueline Wilson of Lakeside sharing this video as they try to feed the cattle. She says winds were gusting 60 miles per hour plus, and they could really use some moisture. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Well, with higher stock numbers in this month's supply and demand report, you would think the market would go down, right? Well, it didn't, so we'll take a look at what else may be at play right now in those markets. That's coming up. And later, Machinery Pete checks the prices for forage equipment.
AgDay is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator, it's not just any closing wheel. Reach your yield potential. Pre-order by April 30th with coupon code AgDay for $2 shipping per wheel.
Well, steakhouses appear to be recovering from the pandemic. A new study says they have maintained their overall growth pattern. The research was conducted by location data analytics company Placer.ai. It says specifically Longhorn Steakhouse and Texas Roadhouse have bucked the trend in the overall decrease in dining out around the nation over the past 2 years. It says Longhorn finished last year with an 11% increase in December visits over the last 2 years and saw only a minimal dip in January and February during the Omicron surge. It says Texas Roadhouse has seen even greater growth. The report also says smaller chains such as Firebird's Wood-Fired Grill and the Capitol Grill are also seeing success. Joined now by John Payne as well as Mike North. Okay, USDA's latest WASDE report out Friday. Got an updated look at old crop. What was the biggest takeaway, John, from the report on Friday?
Tough call. I think it was more of why we're rallying on bearish wheat news. You know, U.S. stocks increasing, not drastically, but a decent percentage change, 10% higher month over month as far as the carryover goes. We're not moving a lot of supply per the export numbers we got. Really the last 6 weeks. So to see us trade above $11 here into the weekend on Kansas City is a head scratcher and certainly points towards something out there that's either inflationary or dangerous with the war as we kind of move here into the growing season and the harvest season.
Yeah, and Mike, you know, still a lot of question marks about the impact of the war and what it's going to mean for global grain supplies. But when you look at South America, USDA did lower its Brazilian soybean crop estimate, but did raise corn. And we're hearing that it could be a better than expected corn crop down there in Brazil.
Yeah, all on weather. You know, the drought has been well documented and its damage to soybeans, not just in Brazil, but across that entire continent. But the weather has since changed and gone wetter and provided moisture in the key growing areas. And now the corn crop forecast continues to grow. That could be the case as we look forward. A lot of weather models suggest that that's going to be continuing to see some good rains and some good support by weather.
John, at what point do you think we will really have a handle on the South American soybean crop?
I think it's already there. You know, the harvest is moving forward. I think the worry I have, again, as I've mentioned in previous segments, is the Chinese reopening. You know, they're essentially locked down. Shanghai, biggest city in China, is like it was March 2020 here. So, you know, the velocity of money, the velocity of trade will completely have collapsed now. And I think at some point when they wake up, they're going to need meal, they're going to need product, and you know, I think that's where the bean shortage will show up, and the U.S. will be the ones who will have to make up for it.
All right, John, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a quick break, and we'll have a check of weather right here on AgDay.
To find John's newsletter, This Week in Grain and Oilseeds, head over to www.thisweekingrain.com. To contact Mike, visit www.ever.ag or give him a call at 608-518-3106.
Meteorologist Matt Yurisovic joins us again. Matt, you showed some video of the dangerous winds in the plains. What do you see then on the horizon for this week?
Yeah, Tyne, that's right. Some severe weather possible as we head through this week. Strong gusty winds could come along with that. But we want to start you out by looking at this drought monitor, and you can see we've still got some extremely dry places there along the east and down into the southeast. It's really, though, from southern parts of Louisiana on into the southern plains where we've got extreme to exceptional drought conditions, and back towards the west, northern Rockies as well. You can see all that red. A lot of drought conditions persisting as we head over the next really a week or so, expecting though some rain back there in the west. So that's a look at the drought monitor right now. Here's a look at the precipitation as we head through this week. And yeah, look at all of this. It's going to be a very active week across most of the country, which we haven't seen recently, but a couple of systems coming up through the Midwest, the northern plains, and the Great Lakes, bringing some much needed rain there to the Dakotas, parts of Nebraska, and back into the northern Rockies. Lots of rain though from really eastern Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas on towards the east, and this right here is the area where we could be looking at that severe weather over the next few days and then heading eastward with more of that heavier rain. So very active week ahead, and the jet stream tells you that story. You can see the warmth out ahead of this system, very warm Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday in places from the Great Lakes off towards the east coast. Meanwhile, back in the west, big dip in the jet stream. Notice as that comes eastward, this is where that system really ramps up. Big differential in temperature back to the west and ahead of it in the east, and that right there is the perfect conditions as we kind of look for some severe weather through the middle part of the week, right there in the middle of the country, staying though still a little active in the west as we head towards the weekend as well. So temperatures this week below average there in the west and above average out ahead of those systems, so very warm in the east. And with regards to precipitation, a lot of it, and especially in some of those areas that we really need it the most, except for parts of California and Nevada and also parts of Texas as well. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Sanford, North Carolina, sunny and warm, a high of 74 degrees. Camden, Arkansas, showers and thunderstorms likely, a high in the lower 80s, and snow showers possible in Dillon, Montana, a high of 39 degrees.
Well, still ahead, a bear gets in a spot of trouble, and we're not talking about a Winnie the Pooh type bear. Plus, Machinery Pete.
Hey, stay tuned, folks. Coming up, I'm going to share some hot recent auction prices on hay equipment.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's April 19th online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
Well, higher equipment prices aren't just a thing right now for tractors. It's even hitting hay equipment. Machinery Pete has more on hay balers this week.
Well, folks, I've seen some very strong auction sale prices recently on good condition used hay equipment. Now let's start off with round balers, and we'll go up to Swanville, Minnesota for a farm auction last Tuesday, April 5th, where this 2000 model John Deere 466 sold for $17,500. Now, if that sounds high, that's because it is. It's an all-time record high price, auction price on a 466. In fact, the previous record was back just over 20 years ago, February of 2002. Now that same day, last Tuesday, April 5th, online farm auction in New Hampton, Iowa, a later model round baler, this 20 model Vermeer 605N with 5,344 bales through it, sold for $45,000, and that's the second highest auction price I've ever seen on a Vermeer round baler. In fact, the only higher one was just back in December on another 20 model 605N online auction in Nebraska at $46,500. Now, one more round baler from an auction in Westminster, Maryland on March 31st, this 20 model Kubota BV 5160 with 2,200 bales through it, sold for $28,000, highest auction price I've ever seen on any Kubota round baler. And I'll leave you with one more hay equipment item from that Maryland auction. How about this? A 2017 New Holland H9870 bale wagon, 488 hours on it. This thing sold for $177,000. That's the third highest auction price I've ever seen on any bale wagon.
Coming up, bears will do what they want to do, and this bear, well, really got themselves in a tight spot. How it all ended next. Well, a woman in Asheville, North Carolina heard a commotion outside and decided to look out and see what was going on. And take a look at what she saw. This is a bear wedged in the windshield of an SUV. And that's not just a cub there. The family says the really big bear was trapped in the car for about 6 hours before eventually breaking free on its own and leaving with her cubs. And what did it leave behind? Well, an absolute mess. The family says the bear also made a big splash in the vehicle, if you get what I'm saying. Despite the fact the vehicle appears to be a total loss, the owner says that she's just glad the bear made it out seemingly unharmed. I'm not sure I would be that positive if that had happened to me in my vehicle. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. Thank you so much for watching. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great week in Farm Country.